Hello and welcome to the IEC webinar on drafting of standards. We are here today with Alistair Menzies, the editing manager of the IEC, and Sarah Song, the layout coordinator. In this webinar, we will have some interesting details. We are here today in the technical department of the IEC, interesting details about the template, and we will hear something about how to draft and how to edit standards. So the people we are having here today, these are really the experts working on these things every day. So this is also a good opportunity at the end of the webinar to ask some questions. So we wouldn't have too many questions maybe in between, so please only ask questions if you don't understand the context or the content, and then at the end we have a lot of time to answer all your questions. Here on screen right now at your computer on the right at this GoToWebinar panel, you can also see the handouts. So we have one handout. This is the presentation which Alistair and Sarah will show today. And I would say let's not waste a lot more time. So I hand over to Alistair, who's already ready and waiting for giving the information, and let's have a good webinar.
So good afternoon everyone, or good morning depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. This afternoon therefore we will look at a few tips and pointers concerning the drafting of IEC publications. It's a complicated subject, so our objective is to primarily give you pointers concerning the rules, to push you in the right direction, and to show you where you can find sources of information as you go about your work. So we will look this afternoon at a few aspects. We will look at some of the rules and sources of information concerning the drafting of standards. We will look at the IEC standard template. We'll look at some of the workflows and basic communication which you can expect with the IEC editorial team. And throughout this process we will talk about some of the keys to success in drafting standards. So without further ado, let us get started. At the end of the day, when you have finished your drafting work, the objective is to come up with a successful IEC publication. What is a successful IEC publication from a very high level and basic perspective? So obviously the publication has to be technically correct. That is your job as experts to get together and to ensure that you have the best possible information within the document, and that is one of the aspects where we rely strongly upon your expertise. Another aspect of the IEC publication is that it represents a consensus of opinion at the time it was published. There are many different actors around the table, and the objective is to arrive at a consensus position. And then lastly, a successful IEC publication has to be written in a precise and simple style. There are two main reasons for this. Firstly, you have to realize that when you're drafting a standard, you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for other people. So you have to think about the fact that qualified people who have not participated in the drafting of the standard have to be able to understand it. For that we require a precise, direct and simple style. And then on the other hand, users have to be able to determine whether or not a product, process, system, or whatever it is that is being standardized conforms to its requirements. Therefore, the standard has to be written in such a way that we can read, understand, and test the requirements easily. So if we keep that in the back of our mind, let's have a look at some of the drafting rules. Why do we need drafting rules? After all, you could say that that an international standard is a technical document, and that drafting rules is a secondary aspect. It actually becomes more important if you think about the system in which we work. The IEC publishes about 600 documents a year and maintains a catalog of over 7,000 publications. Within other sister organizations, for example ISO or in other regional and national bodies, they too publish and maintain thousands of standards too. All of these standards are highly interdependent, and in a wider sense also, we have tens of thousands of experts who participate in the standardization of efforts worldwide. So many documents, many experts, and a high level of interdependency. So the top level of the rules for the drafting of standards is ISO IEC Directives Part 2. This provides a common framework for all IEC and ISO documents and is written by a panel of experts taken from the national committees as well as people from ISO and IEC central offices and central secretariats. This is a document which is currently at the 7th edition, and it has been fairly stable through time, and the main rules within this document have changed very little over the last 30 years, so it's quite a successful document. So these ISO IEC directives exist to ensure efficiency on the one hand, with common work methods for experts mean that the experts themselves can focus on the technical content as opposed to wondering how it is they should be writing their standard. They exist also in terms of ease of use. We try to provide a common understanding for all standards users. They exist to ensure interoperability so that all standards can work together. They exist to ensure clarity and understanding. So common language and conventions means that people using standards understand the same thing when they read the same words. And then in terms of translatability, this is something which we sometimes don't pay enough attention to, but it is important. Common languages and common conventions make standards easier to translate. So in a global world, having common rules makes the documents easier to translate. The next level of information that you can find for the drafting of IEC standards is a section on the IEC website called the Drafting of IEC Publications section. So this provides explanations concerning the rules of the directives. It provides additional recommendations concerning drafting, concerning layout, concerning graphics and figures. Provides user guides on the IEC standard template and tips and explanations on the use of MS Word. So this is intended as a complement to the ISO IEC directives, as an extension to it, and it's important to state that it's a living part of the website. Our intention is to be able to gather feedback from you so that if you have comments on it, or if you have if there are aspects where you think we need further information, we can always extend this part of the website in order to make it useful for you. So it's a living thing, and we hope that that it is useful for you. One third source of information, a third level of information, is the editing helpline. So your document, when it comes through to the IEC, is edited at the latter stages of its development, at the CDV stages, from the CDV stages onwards. But if you have any questions before starting a document or whilst developing a document, you can always contact your editor. Now, the editor, each technical committee has its own editor who is linked to that technical committee, and you can find the name of that editor on your technical committee page under officers, where you'll find the name of the editor. You can always contact that person, and that person will be happy to help. On the other hand, we also have generic email addresses where you can contact us either for editing, for graphics and figures, and for layout, and we'd be also very happy to help you. So the editors and the layout and the figures stuff are there to not only help improve your drafts, but also there to help train you and to help provide additional explanations to any changes they might make within the text, so that you can understand our rules better. And now we have a fourth level of information which also provides useful information and structure for you, and that's the IEC standards template. So for that, I'll pass it over to Sarah Song.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm the layout coordinator at IEC. My presentation today is going to be a brief introduction to the IEC template, and as Alistair said, it's also a fairly complex subject, and I suppose the main goal is to point you in the right direction where you can go to get further information. So why do we use the IEC template? It's the basis for all of the IEC publications, the main purpose of which is to structure our documents and to give IEC publications a common look and feel. It's been designed to facilitate the development of our publications from the earliest stages in drafting all the way through to publication, and then beyond that to the maintenance of documents and the creation of new editions. We try to stay away from direct formatting features wherever possible and have created distinct styles to anticipate the vast majority of uses. So that means for those of us who are not necessarily used to working with templates and styles in Word, the IEC template can seem a little daunting at first. We have a very long list of styles and have develop very specific styles such as strong and emphasis for bolding and italics. And in that way, it's perhaps a counterintuitive way to the way we maybe work with Word in our daily lives. That being said, we don't expect to receive at the IEC perfectly formatted documents from you. But we do strongly encourage you to attach the template to your working documents and to make the most of the styles and automation features that come with it. So the IEC template tab. So we'll very soon be launching the latest version of the template. If you're familiar or currently working with the current version of the template, you'll find all of the same features in the new version. The biggest improvement is this IEC template tab. It's a redesigned custom ribbon tab which replaces what's currently in our current template called the add-ins tab. When you attach the template to your document or open up the template file, this IEC template tab appears at the top of your ribbon. It contains buttons to help you quickly access some of the most useful tools and styles, and has really been designed with a view to make everybody's life easier. So we've divided it into the 5 sections that you can see here. So the first one is insert various elements. So you can insert things such as line numbers, standard text, equations, cross-references, landscape pages. Second section here deals with tables and figures, so you can insert a placeholder figure or table, insert automatically numbered captions, so figure titles, table titles with numbers that will update automatically if you were to add or to delete tables and figures as you're drafting your document. And then here there's a drop-down menu for styles, for the word styles to do with tables and figures. Next section deals with terms and definitions. One really interesting feature is the Insert New Term button. By clicking on this, it opens up the Insert Terminology mask window, which is a really cool and efficient way of adding new term entries into your document. The next button is to insert an automatically numbered note, and then again the appropriate styles for terminology. The next section is various IEC styles. So this is all of the character and most commonly used character and paragraph styles for your document. Text styles such as paragraph, note, heading styles, styles for annexes, and then your list styles. And then the final section is other style commands. So this See All Styles button opens up the style window, and there you see the full list of IEC styles, update styles, and remove styles from your document. Another important feature of the template is the model text, which provides the basic structure of the IEC standard. So if you open up the template, rather than attaching the template to a working file, this is what you'll see. So it comes in with the basic structure and layout of an IEC standard, with the table of contents, with the header properly formatted at the top, a forward, an introduction, and this is particularly useful if you're starting a brand new standard from scratch. It contains lots of tips about how to structure your document and links to the relevant places on the IEC website or in the directives where you can go for more information. The text in red should be replaced with your own text or deleted, and the instructions are provided in the blue boxes. So to get started working with the IEC template, the first thing you'll need to do is to download the template to your computer. So this is the same section on the website that Alistair was referring to earlier, drafting IEC publications. So you go here, and this is where you'll find lots of resources for working with the template, such as the template itself, the user guide, and a list of some of the commonly used keyboard shortcuts for applying styles throughout your document. So what you should do is go over here, download the template, and save it in Word's templates folder on your computer. You only need to do this once, and then you have access to it when you create a new document in Word. You go to File, New, My Templates, and then it will be there. The next thing I would really recommend, it saves a decent amount of time, if you haven't already done this, is to add the templates shortcut to your quick access toolbar. So to do this, you click on the down arrow on your quick access toolbar, which opens up this window. Find templates here on the left, add it, say OK, and then the templates icon will appear. This makes attaching a template or checking if a template is attached to your document much simpler. You click on the icon, it opens up this window. I can see in this document it's the normal template, it's not the IEC template. So if I then wanted to attach the IEC template, click on attach here, navigate to your templates folder, find the IEC template, and say OK. So once you've downloaded the template, added the icon to your quick access toolbar, you're ready to go. So you have two options. You can attach the template to a working document or create a new document based on the template. So if you're working on an existing document, click on the templates icon that I showed you before. Say, oh, go back. Click on the icon, say attach, find the template OK, and then you're good to go. If you're working on a brand new publication and you would like to use the guidance about the basic structure that's already in place, you can open the template file, follow the instructions, replace the text as necessary. So to do that, you would go to, in Word, File, New, navigate to My Templates, and then select the IEC template that you've downloaded. So why do we use styles? We use styles rather than direct formatting, as I said before, for the following reasons. The most important probably being that it saves time. You can, with one click, you can format whole areas of text. It's much quicker. The results are repeatable, keeps the file size to a minimum. You can, with the heading styles, for example, you can, the automatic numbering is extremely useful, and you can navigate easily throughout your document. So this view here is with outline mode selected. So you can see on the left-hand panel at a glance which styles have been applied to the text. I wouldn't recommend working in your document in this way, but it's a useful view if you want to scan through your document just to check, have the heading styles been applied, is paragraph applied. It's a useful feature, so that would be in view and then outline mode. So there are a few places where you can access the IEC styles. The first one is the Styles Gallery, which is available on the Home tab. It's presented in this horizontal view. I prefer using the styles window. So here it's a vertical view and you have all of the styles available from the template are listed here. If you have this button here checked, Show Preview, that allows, rather than having a list of styles that all appear in the same way, Show Preview really gives you a preview of how the style will look in your document. If it's bold, if it's centered. This is, I think, probably the easiest way to quickly scan down and find the style that you're looking for. And the other way is to use the shortcut keys. There's a full list of key shortcuts available on the website. So structuring content using styles. The subdivision of a document is defined by heading styles. If you use heading styles in your document, then Word recognizes the structure that these styles bring in. This is particularly evident when we open the navigation pane here. We can see that we have all of the level 1 heading styles here. The level 2 are indented and clearly belong to the level 1. By using heading styles in your document, we're able to generate a table of contents. Styles also bring structure to a document by assigning an identity to a word or paragraph in the text. So a good example of this is the terms and definitions. We have very specific styles for terminology. And as you can see, they're doing more than just formatting your document in a visual way. So as we can see here, the style term definition actually has the same properties as the style term source. They're both Arial, 10 points, left aligned, not bolded. Visually they're the same, but we've created very specific styles because it's also important to identify what this piece of text is. So this is clearly definable as a term source, as is this. So we have a whole range of styles for terms and definitions. So automation and auto text. One of the most useful features of the template when you're drafting your document is the automation of some of the most common or perhaps tricky tasks. We've tried to make as many of these as simple as possible for users by adding them as buttons on the IEC templates tab. So some of these features include adding or removing line numbering, inserting equations, creating automatically numbered and styled table and figure titles, inserting term and definition entries, landscape pages, annexes. We've really tried to group all of those into the IEC IEC tabs. Some of them can be a little complicated and lots of steps. Really tried to make that as easy as possible. So for more detailed information about using the IEC template, I would invite you to go to the writing formatting section of the website and download the user guide first and foremost. I think it's about 80 pages PDF. It's really comprehensive. It covers everything from technical specifications to how to get started with the template. And then there's some really good information at the back with some frequently asked questions and some troubleshooting tips. And of course, if you have any questions or you're having a problem with the document you're working on, please do feel free to contact us at layout@iec.ch. We'd be happy to help you. And with that, I'll hand back over to Alistair.
Thanks, Sarah. So yes, just to reinforce the point that Sarah was making, we are really here to help you on this journey towards developing your content. A lot of these notions which we're talking about today can seem very theoretical until you actually get your hands in the motor and start drafting your content. So any guidance that you need whilst you're doing the drafting, we are really there to help. And I say this again, and I'm going to repeat it again. It's very important. So at this point, I'd like to look at a few essential notions which are covered by the directives, a few of the cornerstone principles that are in there. So looking at the structure of content, writing a title, a few aspects linked to language, to normative references, terminology, and graphical symbols. So let's have a look at some of these. So one of the first aspects which you will notice when opening any of our standards, at least any of our recent standards, is that the ISO IEC directives have dictated that we have a common structure in all standards. So this means that any user can open any standard and find the same structure, the same elements in the same place, and each of these elements has the same function. That helps with in terms of interoperability, and it should help those of you who are writing more and more standards to have the same habits every time. So that's one first aspect. Secondly, if we look at the title and the scope of a standard, this can seem trivial because, again, it's not necessarily a highly technical aspect of writing a standard, but it is important because the title and the scope of a standard provide a concise description and delimitation of the subject matter that it contains. We have to think about what we're trying to express, and we have to ensure that the right standards are used by the right people in the right contexts. So if we look at the titles, we have to think about the fact, is the title too wide-ranging, or conversely, does it unintentionally limit the scope of the document? So to take a real-world example, here we have a title. This is a real example which was presented to us. Grindability with diamond pellets, test method and classification. That was the title of the draft which was set before us. The first question we asked ourselves was, okay, so this TC wants to grind something with diamond pellets, but what do they want to grind with diamond pellets? Can we grind anything with diamond pellets? Is that the objective? No, the objective wasn't that. The objective was to deal with grindability of raw optical glass. So the title was corrected to add in this element, raw optical glass, grindability of diamond pellets, test method and classification. You will also notice in looking at this new corrected title that we proceed from the general to the particular in writing the title. So we delimit the field in general, raw optical glass. We move on to something which is more detailed, grindability of diamond pellets, and something which is even more detailed, test method and classification. If we had got those elements in a different order, it would have completely changed the scope of the document. So that is, those are some of the basics about that we have to think about when writing the title of a document. Another aspect to be taken into consideration when we write our title and scope is that within the ISO and IEC worlds, very often we break down our subject matter into parts and subparts within a series. So when you have documents which belong to a series, all of the parts in the series require a common title. So here we have an example for 60947. So both -1 and -2 contain this common element, which is low voltage switch gear and control gear. And then whatever comes after that is specific to that particular part. So the same thing also occurs when we subdivide one further level, when we have sub-series. You have a series title, a sub-series title, and then a particular title. Now, the scope is essentially an extension of the title. A title can only consist of maximum a few lines of text, and if we need any more text or more further paragraphs, we can include those in the scope. So the scope provides necessary additional details to the title, and this is of interest to you. It can provide any exclusions. So we can say this document applies to such and such a thing, but does not apply in this other case. And that is a useful way of delimiting the scope of the document. On the other hand, the scope is not there to provide background information. It's not there to deal with context. It's not there to deal with the discussion of other documents. So the scope is purely there to delimit the content of the standard. If there's any background information or information concerning the reasons why a document was written, all of that should be moved into the introduction. So you have a separation between context and scope. Right. The next aspect which I'd like to cover is that of language and the conventions for the expression of provisions. So any two people in the world who talk together will very soon realize that language is subject to varying interpretations. One person saying one thing to another person cannot guarantee that the person in front of them will understand what they are saying, because language can be subject to varying interpretations. So we need conventions in order to be absolutely certain that the standards user understands what it is we're saying. Conventions which do not necessarily correspond to natural language, but which are necessary in the standards world. So first convention that we have within our world is that which we use for requirements. So to express a requirement, we use the verbal form shall. So to take an example here, connectors shall conform to the electrical characteristics specified by IEC 60603-7-1. Second convention concerns recommendations, whereby we use the word should. Wiring of these connectors should take into account the wire and cable diameter of the cables defined in 61156. So there we have a distinction between what is required by the text versus what is recommended by the text, and that will help the standard user. Other conventions which exist, may. The word may is used to express a permission. So IEC 60512-26100 may be used as an alternative to 60512-27-100 for connecting hardware that has previously been qualified to 60603-73. So we are saying that the standard user is allowed to use this alternative method in this particular case. Last convention is can. Can is used to express a possibility, either a law of nature or a logical consequence of a certain amount of factors. So it's there to inform the user of a possibility. And to take an example, use of this connector in corrosive atmospheric conditions can lead to failure of the locking mechanism. So there we have 4 basic conventions for the expression of provisions, which allow us to ensure that we are speaking the same language and that we are absolutely sure about what what is being expressed by the user. This is also very important in terms of translation. It makes text easier to translate for the translators. They know what is a recommendation, what is a requirement, what is a permission, what is a possibility. So another cornerstone principle within standardization is that of normative references. So the normative references clause, which is always clause 2 within a standard, contains a list of publications which are referred to in the text in such a way that they are indispensable for the user. So, to take an example, connectors shall conform to the electrical characteristics specified by 6060371. You will remember from what I said earlier on that shall is used to express a requirement. So we are requiring that the user uses the characteristics specified by 60603-7-1. Therefore, this is a normative reference and it should be listed in the normative references clause. To take another example, wiring of these connectors should take into account the wire and cable diameter of the cables defined in 61156. You remember that should is a recommendation. So it's not a requirement, it's just a recommended practice. Therefore, this is informative and the standard should be listed in the bibliography. So we make this distinction between what is essential versus purely informative. One other aspect linked to normative references is the dating of references. So if we make reference to a specific element of a reference publication, for example, a clause, a subclause, a figure, a table, an annex, etc., that reference needs to be dated. Why is that the case? It is because from one edition of a standard to the next, clause 3 or clause 4 or whatever numbered item we're referring to can change. So this ensures that we are referring to one specific element, one specific set of circumstances which is fixed in time. So if we take this example, the dimensions shall be according to 60793-215-2012 table B1. We are referring to table B1, one particular table, and therefore the reference needs to be dated. If we take another example, the test methods of 61300-2-2 shall be used. That is not very specific. We're just saying that the methods of one particular standard can be used and it's very general in nature, so it doesn't need to be dated. One last thing linked to normative references is that almost any document can be listed within the normative references, but we require that only published and publicly available documents be cited. So don't make any reference to drafts, to private communications, or to other documents which are not available to the general public under fair or free conditions. Next item which I'd like to talk about is terminology. So we've talked about the fact that previously that we have these conventions for the expression of provisions. So terms which are used to express requirements, recommendations, etc., etc. So we fix a terminological framework within which we can write our conventions for the expression of provisions. Likewise, if we extend this towards standardization in general, we encourage technical committees to use common language and terms as one of the keys to our system. We want the same word, ideally, to mean the same thing from one document to the next. So one of the ways which we can ensure this is that before you start writing your standard, check whether acceptable terminology already exists, which you can use. And the Electropedia, which is the International Electrotechnical Vocabulary, is curated by IEC Technical Committee 1, which deals with terminology, and their job is to ensure that we have a common language for use and standardization. If you cannot find an acceptable term within Electropedia, you are allowed to define it within the context of your standard, but we would really encourage you to collaborate with TC1 in coming up with common terminology which you can use throughout your standards. It will facilitate the understanding and precision of your standards. So if you have to write some of your own terminology, you can look into Clause 16 of ISO IEC Directives Part 2 for a more complete overview of the rules on terminology. And if you are interested in collaborating with TC1 in the development of terminology, you can contact Joanna Goodwin, who is our in-house expert on terminology and who liaises closely with TC1 in this respect. As an extension of what I've just said on terminology, we also have the notion of graphical symbols within standards. So graphical symbols are language-independent symbols which can be used either in diagrams or on equipment, and they are standardized by ISO and IEC. So for example, IEC 60617 deals with graphical symbols for use in diagrams, and IEC 60417 and ISO 7000 deal with graphical symbols for use on equipment. If you ever do need to include a graphical symbol within your standard, go into these standards, into these graphical symbols databases and search to see if an appropriate graphical symbol exists, rather than inventing your own new graphical symbol. If no appropriate graphical symbol exists for your use, you can contact IEC TC3 for symbols for diagrams, and IEC Subcommittee 3 and ISO TC 145 Subcommittee 3 for symbols for use on equipment. We have in place an expedited process for the development of graphical symbols, which will allow new graphical symbols to be created very rapidly and to enter the internationally standardized world. So you can always feel free to contact them if you need that. Okay, we've looked at a few of the cornerstone principles concerning standards, those things which mean that all of the standards are written according to the same core principles. Now I would like us to look at workflows and communication with the IEC editing team, and I see that Jan has a question for me, so go ahead, Jan.
Very well, Alistair. So we have a question from Josu Escuela-Lasuen. You said only published, publicly available documents shall be cited, no drafts. What about consolidated versions? Let's say a standard with an amendment which IEC issues a consolidated version for. Can we refer to these?
Okay, so a consolidated version in the IEC is when we have a base edition of a standard and an amendment which is published. and they are consolidated together into one product. So the product, which we call the consolidated edition, is actually there as a convenience product for the user. We take one standard plus another standard and we stick them together. That is created purely for the convenience of the user, and it is not an official product in the sense that it has not been voted on by national committees as such. So you can, as a user, you can feel free to use the consolidated edition, but for legal and technical reasons, we have to cite the base edition plus its amendment. And we cite them together, and it shouldn't be a problem for the user. But we do realize that the user will very often use a consolidated edition. But its consolidated edition consists of two separate sets of content. Okay, let me move on to the next topic. So workflows and communication of the IEC editing team. So the standards development process is a fairly long process. It can take up to 3 years. It depends obviously on the project, but the way we work at the various stages of the project is different depending on where we are within the whole context. Whatever the case is, we are always available for help and advice as necessary. So let's look at how you work with us before the CDV, at the CDV, at the FDIS, and at the publication stage. But before I do that, I want to just remind you about a few keys to a successful drafting exercise. So these are a few core principles which it's worth keeping in the back of your mind as you go through with your project, and which might seem trivial, but which will really help you as you go through with your project. So first thing, allowing time for planning. There are 30,000 plus experts within the IEC system. We have thousands of projects in the pipeline, and we have many schedules to manage. So at your level and at our level, it's really very useful to allow time for planning. It's not a luxury at all, and you have to think well in advance what you're planning and what your schedule will be in developing the standard and in delivering the various deliverables which we require. A core aspect which we have to take into account is that we suggest that you have one designated document manager. So rather than having a document floating around many different computers, it's better to have one person in charge of managing the document and managing the content that goes in and out of the document. The more versions of a document you have, the worse it gets. We really advise you to have one reference version of the document, so either it can be the whole document or it can be fragments of the document if you decide to chop it up into clauses and designate one clause to one person, another clause to one person, and so on and so forth. But you need to have a system of management of your content in order to not lose track of where we are, who we're working with, and what the versions are. Which leads me to say that traceability and tracking of issues and their resolution is important. In a 2 or 3 year project, if you take a decision today, you might not remember in 2 years' time who took the decision and why that decision was taken. So especially if we're talking about major decisions and important changes to a document, it's important to note why a decision was taken, when it was taken, who it was taken by, and what the outcome was. So we have our commenting forms for the major steps in the document's development, which can give you an idea of a way of tracking the issues and how to resolve them. So where the comment is, who made the comment, what the suggestion is, and what the outcome should be. And this leads me to the next topic, that's that of communication. We're dealing with many people within our system, so it's very important that you take care of communication, and that whenever you are providing a draft to someone, you have to provide the next person in line with all of the necessary information for them to be able to do their job properly. So any background to decisions, any particularities in the text, any IT issues within the document, etc., which need taking care of, so that the next person can do their job efficiently without fishing around for information. So these are all very basic things, but I think it's important to maintain these principles as you manage the drafting of your document. Okay, so what happens in the drafting process, and how do we interact with the IEC central office's editorial services? So before the CDV stage, documents are not edited by the IEC. We don't see the documents, we don't look at them unless you contact us for advice. So we're happy to provide practical advice on any aspect of a document. We can, if you have a doubt as to how, as to what a rule should be or how it should be applied, feel free to contact us. If you're having trouble formatting your document or applying the template, feel free to contact us so that we can offer you practical advice. So just a few reminders. We really advise that you use the IEC standard template to structure your text from the earliest stages onwards. It's always easier to start with using the template right from the very first stages, rather than applying the template later on and updating styles. And if you're working on the maintenance of a previously published document, please contact us to obtain the Microsoft Word publication file of the previous edition, which can then go on to serve as a starting point for the new edition. Okay, then now if we move on to the CDV stage, what happens at the CDV stage? CDV stage is in the last third, more or less, of the document's development, or the second half of the document's development, where you consider that your draft is receiving a sufficient level of maturity for it to be able to be looked at by the outside world. So when you submit a draft CDV to us, there is a translation period of 6 weeks before the voting starts. Once these 6 weeks pass, the document is circulated for vote for 12 weeks. And whilst the document is being voted on by the national committees, the editorial services here at IEC will start working on the document in parallel. So we will format the document. So we receive the document, and our layout services will go through it and clean it up and ensure that the template and the styles have been applied properly. And then the document will be edited by the editors here, and they'll use Microsoft Word track changes mode. So once a document has been submitted for CDV, we really strongly encourage you to stop your work on the document. Don't continue working on parallel versions, even if it's tempting to do so. We say that the reference version of the document is here at the IEC. So take a good rest and wait for the vote to finish before moving on to the next steps. So the edited document, once we finished with it, is sent to the secretary, who is then responsible for forwarding it to the convener or project leader. What will you have at this stage, at the end of the CDV vote? You will have our edited copy. So go through this edited copy, accept and reject the changes which you have in the file, and react to the editor's comments. So you'll see these changes marked up in track changes mode here, for example, at this point, or you will see comments appearing in the comment bubbles. Please don't do accept all or reject all with our comments. You really have to look at them one by one in order to be able to ensure that we have a correct outcome. The other thing you'll have at the end of the CDV stage is the commenting file, which contains all of the comments received from the national committees in the course of the vote. So you go through these comments, read through them, look at the proposed changes which are being made by the national committees, and accept or reject or modify these comments which are made. So, and then the result of whatever resolution you come up with then has to be inserted within the text. And as a result of this process, you will have a draft FDIS, which you can submit to us. So incoming draft FDISs go through an initial evaluation, which we call an entry control here. So before being officially accepted by the IEC, we will have an initial evaluation. We will look to see whether the editor's work has been taken into account. We will look to see if there are any obvious major problems. We'll look to see if there are any missing texts and any potentially challenging matters, for example, patent claims, copyright issues, etc. And if everything seems okay, we accept the document for editing. If there are major problems, we'll get back to you and contact you in order to resolve them before going further with the document. What do we do at the FDIS stage? So, contrary to the CDV, where we edit the document in parallel to the vote, at the FDIS stage, we will edit the document before vote. The reason being that a document which is submitted for FDIS vote has to be as close as possible to the final product. So we will go through the document one last time before the vote and try and weed out some of the last remaining errors. So in theory, once a FDIS draft is accepted, we have 12 weeks to circulate the document for vote, to edit it and circulate it for vote. In reality, we work much quicker than that, and we get most documents out for vote within 6 weeks. So at this stage, rather than working in track changes mode, we should have less questions to deal with because we've already edited the document at the CDV stage, and any questions that we have will be sent to you, to the secretary, who is responsible for providing answers. So we'll send out a list of questions and we ask that you reply as quickly as possible because the clock is ticking and everyone wants the FDIS to be circulated as quickly as possible. So please try and reply within 10 working days. And once we have resolved all of the issue, the document is approved by the IEC technical officer and the document is circulated for vote. That is the last time that we will see the document and look at the document from an editorial standpoint. So if your document passes the FDIS vote, the final layout of the document will be taken care of by the IEC layout services and the document will be published. We don't re-edit the document after FDIS stage. So this brings me to the end of the overall process. As I understand it, I don't know if we have any questions at this stage concerning the process or some of the principles that we have laid out now.
Thank you very much, Alistair and Sarah, for the presentation. So we have already 2 questions in line. There's a question from Charles Sidebottom. Is any consideration being given to shortcutting the way amendments are referred to in the running text At times, a reference to a standard with 2 amendments can take up to almost the full time of text. So.
Yes. So, thanks for the question, Charles. It has been considered. It's true that when you have to refer to the base edition plus Amendment 1 plus Amendment 2, by the time you've put all of these things together, the document and the date and the other document and its date and the third document and its date, we can get quite a lot of text there. So we haven't yet arrived at a solution which is acceptable by all experts within ISO and IEC, but we're working on it. We're aware that it's not great and that it's not perfect, but for the moment we don't have a solution. Hopefully in next editions of the directives it could be taken care of.
Okay, thank you, Alistair. There's a question from Huaigao Zhou, which is a more question for the templates. So there's a template for the NP, new work item proposal in the IEC templates resource. Is there any template for the proposal for the preliminary work item? I think this refers more, I know there's a template now in the online templates. Do you want to answer this, Alistair, or? Okay.
Okay, so when it comes to the actual drafting template, so that the template for drafting your content is the same, whether it's a preliminary work item proposal, a CD, a CDV, an FDIS, or a final standard. So that is what the IEC standard template is for. On the other hand, there are some online templates for the drafting of the cover sheets, which is a separate subject which we don't cover in our particular world. I don't know if you want to talk about this at all, Jan?
Okay, so yeah, we have we are updating at the moment the online forms. So the preliminary work item is can be done by the secretary. This is an online form, while the NP still is to be found in the resources. So there's something which will be updated. So we are more and more moving into the direction of having online forms. So this is why you don't find it right now in the online forms. I have another question from Eldridge Byron. This is, will the PowerPoint be published or is it available online? The PowerPoint actually, or the presentation is online right now. So if you go to your right side, to your go to webinar screen, you can find it in the handouts section. You can download it there. If any of you cannot download it right now, out of whatsoever reason, please send us a mail afterwards, and we can also send it to you then. And mentioning, by the way, that this presentation, the recording of the presentation, will be available on the IEC website for the Academy. Now we have another question from Serge Noël. Can one reference to a Senelec or Sen standard? Just I switch back to Alistair.
Yes, so when referring to standards, when a normative reference needs to be made, our preference is that you refer to an IEC or an ISO standard, so an international standard. On the other hand, if no appropriate standard exists within the IEC or ISO world, you are then allowed to refer to other authoritative sources. So these other authoritative sources can be regional standards, such as Senelec standards, or national standards. And the people who judge whether or not a standard is authoritative or not is the TC. So you are left free to judge what is authoritative or not.
Thank you, Alistair. We have another question here from Pierre Begman. Is there any new information or workaround on the issue with the Microsoft Work Equitations 3.0 add-in referencing the IEC? Okay.
Okay. No new information for the moment. So right now we are suggesting that experts use math type for writing equations. So math type is available to all. It's freely available in its light form, and there is a paid version which is also available. Right now, we haven't found a better solution than math type for the writing of equations. It's the solution which has been chosen by ISO, also by the IEEE, and which is currently being assessed by the ITU. So it seems that on a worldwide level, math type seems to be not the best solution, but the least bad solution, and until we find something better, that is what we're going to stick with for the moment.
Thank you, Alistair. We don't have any questions at the moment. Are there any questions you have right now on this question and answer session? If not, of course, you can send, Alistair gave you the information. We have the contact information, so you can send a question anytime. So we're waiting just a little bit. It seems at the moment there are no more new questions. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. As said, at the moment you can download the handout on the right side of your webinar window here. The webinar will be available as a recording later on the website, on the IEC Academy website. So thank you very much, Sarah Song and Alistair Menzies, today here, this webinar in the technical department. Thank you for participating to the participants, and goodbye from Geneva.